someone messaged me telling me it was the worst video they'd ever seen me make. They were very upset because, yeah, they wanted blood. If there's a perceived enemy, then the witch hunt begins. It's all encouraged to get worse and worse and worse. And I'd like to think that most people, when they see injustice, it upsets them and makes them want to do something about it. So expose yourself to it and see what's going on. That's the best advice I could give. Don't turn away from it. Face it head on, and everything else will fall into place. You'll start making those changes because you'll need to make them. You won't be able to go on anymore. You'll see this video and you'll say, I have to do something about this, and then start making those changes.
David Rams, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
You are a activist, a vegan activist, and quite successful YouTuber, at least compared to us with 250 followers on our. But thank you so much for being here. And I wanted to ask you a bit, how did you end up here within the vegan movement? What was your path?
Yeah, we have to go back quite a while, about 35 years.
That's fine.
To when I was born,
yeah.
Because now my mum became a vegetarian at the age of 16 when she saw a truck carrying sheep to a slaughterhouse, and it really impacted her to see these. It was lambs, I think it would have been lambs in this truck. Up until that point, she'd never realised kind of where meat comes from, and in that moment, it just hit her. All of a sudden, as a 16-year-old, like, oh wow, this is where meat comes from. I don't feel comfortable with that. I don't want to see these babies are going to go and be killed. This is disgusting. Why am I eating this? So she became a vegetarian, and then some years later had me, and so raised me as a vegetarian, and raised me with the same mindset that when I looked at animals, when I looked at cows in the fields or sheep in the fields, she would always tell me that these are animals, these are important, we have a dog at home, they're no different than your dog at home. You know, just because you don't know them, just because they're a cow and they look different, you treat them the same as you would treat our dog at home. And she would also make the connection with me that you see with those burgers, and people have the burgers at McDonald's, that's the cow. And she would explain that to me from a young age. So I was very fortunate to have that start in life. My mum went vegan before me, actually, and by this point, I was an adult. I was at university, and I thought I knew everything in the world, as most young people do. And when she went vegan, I thought she was crazy, and I told her, like, you know, not gonna do that. And by the way, I mean, I had done activism before as a child as well, because she was into activism and stuff. But this vegan thing was crossing the line. You know, activism I could handle, but veganism, you know, I want to be a vegan. You're crazy. They're all crazy. So I resisted for quite a long time, not really understanding why milk was bad for animals or why eggs were bad for animals. I refused to listen to what she had to say. And eventually I came around to it myself. I couldn't, you know, I started to have some interesting digestive problems with certain types of food. For example, the foods that were heavy in dairy started to make me feel bad. And so I decided to cut that out just for the sake of, you know, not feeling bad. And it was around that time when I made that decision with dairy where I just suddenly realized, wait a minute, why am I even consuming those products to begin with? Why do I eat milk and milk products? Why do I eat eggs? What is this for exactly? And do I need it? And it just all became a little bit odd to me all of a sudden. It's probably through my mum's influence as well. Then I cut those products out, but then I only learned about the ethical considerations a little later down the line. Then I realized why milk was bad for animals. Well, because they forcefully breed cows. They inject them with all sorts, they shove their arms inside them, they force them to have babies and take the babies away and kill the babies and kill them when they're done with them, and kill the male babies, that is. The female babies, they, as you know, keep using them for milk over and over again. So the milk is crazy. It's almost worse than the meat industry, so that blew my mind. And then the egg industry is just the same, but for eggs. So they're, you know, breeding all these chickens, and any chicken that's born as a male, they kill them, and then they keep all the female ones, keep them laying eggs, and then what do? As soon as they're done with them, they lay less eggs, they kill them too. So they're all just kind of, you know, locked into place after that. and now I do what I do now, and I'm here doing activism because I didn't know about any of these things for a very long time, and if I knew, I would have changed earlier, and I wish I'd have known sooner, and somebody had, my mum tried, but I wish other people would have tried, because no one listens to their mum, right? And so I wish I'd have met activists, and I didn't, and so I'm trying to make a change now in the world and trying to bring that information to people now.
And for me, it's interesting because the issue we're facing of animal cruelty, it's so vast, so immense. So whatever we're just doing kind of a small piece, at least the way it is in the world today. So I think this vegan activism, for that to be efficient, we really have to be activists or be advocates in a way that is as efficient as possible. And you have a following of 45,000 people, I think, on YouTube, and you're doing speeches. That's how we met on this conference. So you're having a big outreach. So I'm wondering, how did you find your place? Because there are so many ways of being an activist. Some of the things I saw you're doing, walking up to strangers, confronting strangers, having these debates, is something that's way outside of my comfort zone. So I'm wondering a bit, how did you place yourself within the movement? Was that trying and failing a bit? Did it come natural to you? Have you stepped out of your comfort zone until this becomes kind of a skill that you possess? Or?
Well, it depends how deep you want to go with this. I mean, we can go deep and you can cut out what you don't want in. But I think if I'm going to be really analytical on this, and how did I get to this point where I do go over to people and debate people out of the blue and stuff like that. It probably started because, I grew up in a single parent household for one, so I had no father figure, and I think something you'll see with a lot of guys who will grow up without their dad around. A lot of them will overcompensate by being extra loud or extra boisterous, let's say, and I think that's something I had as when I was quite young, as I was a little bit over the top and suppose acting out a little bit. So I had quite a lot of that in me, that kind of drive to fight people, not physically but argue and prove that I'm still, I'm still a guy, even though I've not had a guy influence in my life, right? So I think there was some element of that when I was young. That didn't go very well because people don't like that, so it definitely got knocked down a few pegs when I was a kid. So but it was, it was definitely, I think it probably helped me resilience-wise to grow up like that and to have, problems as a kid. And I think that led me into this world where I'm quite, comfortable arguing with people, and sometimes, maybe unproductively back then, but it helped build the building blocks to be comfortable with arguing people for a productive reason. So I suppose it doesn't come naturally to everybody. Arguing probably did come naturally to me. Public speaking didn't, but arguing did. So I just used that skill and turned it into something productive, and rather than wasting it on stupid arguments and trying to win, it's something I used to do. I don't do that anymore. I'm happy to lose if I'm wrong now. So yeah, that's what led me into the activism movement, the outreach movement. That, I was already arguing with people all the time anyway. Well, let's put it to good use and actually do it to help animals. And I don't really argue these days. It's more of an exchange of ideas and opinions and just trying to find common ground, I would say. But if you watch some of my older videos, then I was just arguing. But that's a change of tactic. A bit different now.
And it's interesting. It's an interesting combination, because this is often what we're met with as vegans, in a sense that you have to be strong, you have to be, and that meat is a part of that in a sense. So it's a very, imagine it's an effective combination as well. Cool. And I'm wondering also, what would you say to people who are watching, who are more in this, how can I improve my impact on the world, trying to become more aware of the important issues out there, and then they're feeling that something is a bit off in terms of how they treat or the way they see animals, but also how they behave in terms of using animal products. So people are kind of starting down that line, but who thinks it's, maybe they think where to start, or it seems a bit radical to take the first step.
I mean, it's difficult without knowing the individual. This is the thing, but You know, I'll give you an example. I was speaking to somebody the other day on the street, and she just watched the video that we're showing. It's a 3-minute video. The viewers can watch it. It's at 3minutes.wtf, I believe, or 3-minute movie. We'll check it later, and you can put it on the screen. There's 3 minutes that could change your life, and it changed a lot of people's lives when we show them in the street. And so this woman watched it and told me that, well, she'd already been thinking about milk and how she really was disgusted by it. This video helped her make that decision to completely cut milk out and all dairy products. So that was her thing. That was her mode. Some people feel the same about meat. Some people feel the same about eggs. So it really depends on you as an individual as to where you're going to start with all of this. Well, okay, what moves you the most? It could be the plight of the chicken, it could be the plight of the cow. I mean, I can't, without knowing them personally, without knowing you personally, I don't know where's best for you to begin, but that's the best place to begin. Begin with something that you are adamant and passionate about, and then change that and begin there then. And yeah, I mean, it doesn't need to be this big, huge, dramatic, scary thing that you're making it out to be. Becoming a vegan is not scary. Especially not if you break it down into day by day. You know, especially if you live in a developed country, it's incredibly easy nowadays to find plant-based alternatives. So, but I do understand, like, mentally and, you know, habit changing takes some time. But yeah, if you're passionate, then you'll definitely find it a lot easier, and yeah, become passionate about it. That's what I would say. Research and become passionate. The more you see, the more that passion will brew inside you, because it's injustice. And I'd like to think that most people, when they see injustice, it upsets them and makes them want to do something about it. So expose yourself to it and see what's going on. That's the best advice I could give. Don't turn away from it. Face it head on, and everything else will fall into place. You'll start making those changes because you'll need to make them. You won't be able to go on anymore. You'll see this video and you'll say, I have to do something about this, and then start making those changes.
And to people who have become vegan and who want to increase their impact even more, do you have any takes on this?
Increase your impact more? Well, I think if you're not on social media trying to make social media content, I think you are really selling yourself short, because you could go out on the streets and you could talk to people all day and you will not have as much of a reach and an impact as one social media post, because you can make one post that reaches 100 people. You're not going to talk to 100 people in a day. It's not going to happen. So and the beauty of social media is you can do whatever it is that you want to do physically and social media. You don't need to do both. Either or. So I'd say that would be a really, really great place. If you're more of I don't know, if you're smart, if you're like a really smart person, there's probably even better ways that you could apply yourself. Like if you're an academic or if you're some kind of scientist, then devote your career to helping animals or things adjacent to helping animals. Food science is a great place to get into right now. Lots of people working on alternative proteins, things like that, if you're really smart. Politics, you know, lobbying, you need to be pretty smart for that stuff, I think, as well. But I say, but if that's not for you, it's not suggesting you're dumb, by the way. If it's not for you, it's, you know, intelligence is subjective. But anyway, if it's not for you, if all that's not for you, then yeah, I mean, doing what I do. I don't do those things because I don't think I got the brain power for it, to be totally honest with you. But that's why I focus where I focus. I focus on the people, working with the people. And that's something that everybody can do, because there's one thing that we all have in common. We all know people, don't we? We've all got family and friends, so you know how to have communication and talk, then we'll do that then, if that fits you, yeah.
And I just heard you and Jack Hancock having a discussion on a few concerns of non-vegans, some a bit more far-fetched than others.
Yeah.
But I'm wondering, what are the most common concerns, those that are more reasonable, those kind of fears that people
are changing. Health is the number one fear that people have. They think if they become a vegan or start eating plant-based, they're going to become unhealthy. It's a real shame, because that is mostly driven by fear-mongering tactics, lies and manipulation from the people who oppose this. So the people who own the meat industry companies and the eggs, and we're talking billions and billions of dollars, euros, pounds, they are not just your local farmer and this old farmer and this other farmer here. There is a network way above that is devoted to ensuring that this system keeps going the way it is. They spend hundreds of millions a year on advertising and propaganda. They pay people to pose as regular people on social media to just spread propaganda. You know, they're paid to do it. And then you get all these influencers who are probably not paid by them, but they want to keep eating meat. So they also make things up about vegans, and they also spread misinformation. And so I don't blame people for thinking that there are health issues. And you got the mainstream media who, anytime a vegan coughs, they do a headline story. You know, this vegan died of malnutrition because of veganism, things like that. And it's very sad when something like this happens. But let's be clear, they're not dying of malnutrition from veganism, they're dying from malnutrition. If that somebody dies of malnutrition, it doesn't matter what they were eating, it matters what they weren't eating. Right? So that's why they think it's unhealthy. Unfortunately, no matter how much you or I or all the plant-based doctors out there and all the plant-based athletes, we are screaming that it's a lie every day. Like, this is a lie, we're healthy, you can do it, you can be healthy. You can scream it as loud as you want, but what's that saying about it takes, by the time the truth comes out, the lie has already gone around the world 6 times. This is what we're stuck with. So that's the main concern, and the answer is you can be perfectly healthy, but I could say that 1,000,000 times and there'll be 100 million people saying it's not. And that's what happens, unfortunately, but they're wrong and we're right on this on this one. It can be healthy.
Yeah, it's interesting what you're saying. It's a very culturally ingrained belief, and I remember when I became a vegetarian at age 5, 6, when I understood the connection, people were very concerned, and my grandmother, she wanted to pay me and my brother for eating meat, and it was you felt like you were giving up something important for your beliefs, and that has changed so much over the next decades. So I heard you do a talk yesterday on this animal rights conference, but the talk was more about how to interact with each other as humans, how to treat each other as humans, and how to communicate, which was a really interesting talk. Could you tell us a bit more about your message there?
Of course, yeah. So I mean, earlier on you asked me how I got into the movement, and I told you it was most likely, if we were going to go deep, how I got into talking to people as an activist, and you asked me, sorry. And I went a bit deep, and I told you it was probably to do with my argumentative nature as a youngster. And I wanted to just quickly clarify there as well that you don't need to be argumentative to come out and do activism. There's many different ways that people can get involved, art and all sorts of different things. But if you enjoy arguing with people and enjoy debate and discussion, then like me, then do that, right? But yeah, unfortunately, because of the way I was raised, I suppose, and the kind of experiences that I had, and maybe a little bit of genetics there as well, because my mum and dad are also very shouty people, I maybe came in a little too hot, right? And when I used to do activism, I used to feel like I should just lean into my natural kind of bold and direct, and just lean into it, because that's what I am, and let's not fight it, let's just be that. And I did that for a long time, and look, it had some impact. I reached millions of people. I mean, some of my videos were, you know, very big, but what I started to realize was, if I reach like 1 million people, and only 1% of that 1 million people are positively influenced because of the nature of the way I was speaking, versus if I reached 10,000 people and 80% of those people were actually positively influenced. I mean, you start looking at these numbers and you start to realize that maybe quality is better than quantity. That might have been a bad example, because I think 1% of 1 million is still more, but you get my point, right? The point is that I started to realize that when you reach millions of people, you actually can't really account for the impact you're having. You can't see it because there's so many, but you can see there's a lot of negativity normally. Whereas when it's less people you're reaching with a better quality message, there's usually a lot more positive feedback, even from people that disagree with you. And once I started to realize this, I started to analyze myself and wonder, wait, have I been focusing too much on this side, and have I really been convincing? Have I been effective? And the answer was, I don't know, but I'm leaning towards no. And I started to kind of look at a lot of the things that I'd said, and a lot of the way I dealt with conflict as well, conflict with both with meat eaters and conflict with people in my own community. I'd always thought that just being right is all you need to be. Just as long as you're right, it's okay, say it. And just say it boldly, and maybe even mock them and everything, and just, you're right, so it doesn't matter. And that looking back, I didn't agree with that anymore. I started to, I started listening to other more intelligent people than me and the things that they talk about, the research that they would cite about behavior change. Read more books about it, and started to all kind of came together into like, well, you probably weren't doing the best. You probably weren't doing your best. You can communicate more effectively, and there are a lot of reasons to do it, basically. So yeah, it was like a slow transition, but definitely one that I think was needed to go. And also I'm a lot happier off the back of that as well, like personally, calmer and feeling more productive and positive, as opposed to before, when it was quite a tiresome way of being, to be constantly combative with people, So yeah, collaborative instead of combative basically is the way I've moved now. Yeah.
It sounds, in a way, it sounds very basic, right? It's the right path to take, the path of balance, the path of
right.
But at the same time, I mean, for anyone familiar with Star Wars, it's kind of the dark side, the easy side, which is the more combative, maybe the more extreme side. So I think it's a hole that's very easy to be dragged down in. I mean, if you were having more views on YouTube, it means, I imagine you're opening you're letting go of also profits, I imagine, and also I'm sure you're familiar with the concept of audience capture, where you have a certain audience and then they often turn the creator more extreme because that's what they like, that's what they respond to and drawn to likes. So I think it's despite being kind of the obvious route, it's a very difficult route, I imagine, to take. So I was wondering a bit, like, how did you feel the pull, or the various pulls from different directions that so many people succumb to, actually? Yeah,
unfortunately, we have a bit of a, well, not just to the vegans, all groups of people have this problem where if there's a perceived enemy, then the witch hunt begins. And it happens I'm sure it happens in lots of groups, all the way from social justice groups all the way through to like football fans, and if there's a common enemy, it's all encouraged to get worse and worse and worse. And so, for example, when recently Peter Dinklage, the actor from Game of Thrones, the Tyrion, became he was a vegan, and then he announced that he's no longer a vegan, he's eating animal products. And I can tell you that the vast majority of people who watch my videos if they knew I was making a video about this, they wanted me to scorched earth. Okay,
they wanted a Game of Thrones like ending for him.
Yeah, they wanted his head, and I didn't give it to them. I actually decided to make the video geared towards a non-vegan who's interested in why this happened. So instead of attacking him, I explained some possible theories for his behavior, and I just basically said to put it out to people that you don't know what's going on with this person, but it looks like he's having some issues or has had some issues. And I kind of tried to show empathy in that I don't agree with what he's doing. I don't agree that he's eating animals again, but let's try and understand what he's doing, why he's doing this, and let's use that to encourage other people not to make the same mistakes. And yeah, the feedback was pretty good from a lot of people, but now some feedback was very, very bad. I had someone message me telling me it was the worst video they'd ever seen me make. They were very upset because they wanted blood. And so that's a big change that I've made. I don't want to make videos for vegans all the time anymore. I want to try to focus more on changing people, and you're not going to change people by putting Peter Dinklage on a video and just being horrible to him, because he's now a member of the majority, and you're not going to convince the majority by screaming at one of the majority about how they're wrong for what everybody else is doing. I don't believe it's got to be something a little different. So I'm trying that, yeah.
So when you have changed your approach a bit, being more open to discussion, what has this taught you something with the people you've discussed with, or from your own approach? Has this changed who you are or how you think about things?
For sure. I mean, I came here for the first time last year to this conference where we are, and I went to talk of somebody that I previously thought I would disagree with, and I realized that I didn't really disagree at all. And then I read his book. This is Tobias Leinart, and I read his book, How to Create a Vegan World. And again, I expected I would disagree with him because I felt for some reason that we would have opposing views, and we didn't have opposing views for about 99% of the book. In his book, he makes the case for things like, I used to always say, it's either vegan or it's not. It's black and white. You're vegan or you're an animal abuser. These are the kind of things that I would say. Now, technically, if you're going to be technical about it, if one is paying for meat, then you are responsible directly for animal abuse. There's no getting around that. But that doesn't mean that the solution to the problem of this situation for animals is always so black and white, because people are complicated and difficult and stubborn, and unfortunately, you know, I'm stubborn as well, by the way, it's not an insult, but it's complicated. So if we're going to try and get the masses to change for animals, imagine if you tell people it's all or nothing, a lot of people will choose nothing, because it's psychology, this is how we work. So instead of telling people nothing, try showing them a path where they can make changes starting right now that don't necessarily mean they need to go vegan this exact moment. I would, 2 years, 3 years ago, I would have rejected that outright. Now I'm reading it and I'm realizing that's just basic human behavior that we've studied for a long time, and that's something we need to work with. It's simple as that. All or nothing attitudes could lead someone to becoming vegan for 1 year, 2 years, maybe forever, but it's less likely. Whereas somebody who removes dairy from their diet for their entire life, that's going to have a bigger impact than somebody who goes vegan for 1 year and then quits because they've been told it's all or nothing. You know what I mean? So if you remove the all or nothing, maybe people do 90% plant-based, and maybe they drop down to 50 and go back up to 70, maybe some weeks they drop down. As long as they are continuously, consistently making changes, I mean, that's making a huge difference. So that's something that I would never have accepted before, that I feel is that's quite good now. But deep in my heart, of course, I still, please don't misinterpret this, I still want people to stop altogether paying for these horrible things to animals. I want people to be vegan. But yeah, I suppose accepting that that's not always going to be the case is other things that can help. I suppose that was a big turning point for me, for sure.
It comes back to the end result in a sense. It's kind of leaving the dogmatic, the idealism, right, to the more pragmatic approach. The fastest way to the target is very much.
Yeah, it's tough because it's, you know, it's your heart versus your head, basically. In your heart, you want people to stop, because I've also worked as an investigator, so this is not, I'm not just talking about this because of videos. I've made the videos of farms and slaughterhouses. So it's very difficult for me to accept this, you know, in my heart I want people to stop right now, and I want to scream and shout until they do, but in my head I know that doesn't work. And I know that many people out there won't stop immediately, and they will spend years and years and years reducing, but that's better than nothing. And please do something. You know, I can't make you change, but I would hope that you would try and change at least something and start making a difference. Yeah.
I really like the heart and the head metaphor, and I also think sometimes we can turn it upside down in a sense, because I think as humans we are not necessarily developed to care for ethical issues that are too far away,
True.
in conflicts in other countries, or species that are not human.
People care more about the ulcer in their mouth than they do the person starving on the other side of the world.
Yeah, and people care more. We used to live in small groups, so that's kind of the circle that we're ecologically developed to care about.
Immediate suffering of ourselves and those around us is our priority. And
that is, and it makes sense in an evolutionary. But that's where I think that's kind of where our heart is, and then some people are more sensitive, so they care beyond that, and then maybe they become vegans because of the animals, or maybe they become. But that is where I think also the head comes in a sense, because we rationally we know what is going on is not right. Rationally we know, and then I think if we can act more upon our rationality as well, we don't always need our heart to be there, but sometimes it's enough with the brain. I think the brain substitutes where the limits of the heart is.
You have compassion for your own injuries, or your family and their problems, but you have to learn to be compassionate about those outside of your circle, I suppose. And that, you're right, your head trains your heart in a way.
Yeah, precisely. Yeah.
Sure,
If you had 1 minute to talk, and that message would be broadcasted to the entire world, how would you spend that 1 minute?
Damn. Yeah, I can't spend too long thinking about it, but I would like to. Like I would say this, I would say that people in general, probably 95 to 98% of people believe they're good, and I believe they're good too. I agree with them. I think they're most likely trying at least to be good, and I like that that's the case. How horrible would it be if that was the other way around? How lucky are we that people try to be good rather than try to be evil? Wow. So I think we're already in a great position, despite all the horrors in the world, in that people are trying to be good. And they also would probably agree, most of them, that we should try to be good to the other animals on the planet too. Not very many people want to see animals dying in pain. If they see an animal in pain on the street dying, they don't feel good about it. Maybe they don't do anything about it, but they definitely don't feel good about it. And some people will do something about it, which is fantastic. And the people who do feel good about it, they probably have something going on, that's something wrong with them, right? And we probably all agree on that there's probably something wrong with somebody who enjoys seeing that. So again, we're off to a great start there as well. I would say that with that being the case, we're in the same boat. I'm a vegan, you're not a vegan, but we agree on that, and that's really important. Unfortunately though, even if you're not seeing these animals suffering and being abused, when you're paying for things, animal products like meat and dairy and eggs, and you're funding those companies, you're paying people to do horrible things to animals, and they're doing it for money. It's not for survival, it's not for nutrition, it's for money, profit. They make a lot of money out of this, and it's in their best interest to keep you doing that. I would say that you are allowing billionaires to keep buying mansions and buying fancy cars and do all this. You're allowing them to use you and to make you act against what you believe in. You don't believe in abusing animals, but they're convincing you to pay for it, so they can keep buying sports cars and mansions and whatever they're doing. So my message to you would be, stop allowing these people to manipulate you, stop allowing them to get rich off of you, and stop allowing them to convince you to go against what you believe in. You can eat tasty food, you can get products that are fun and great, and you can have awesome stuff. Buy all the awesome things that you want to get. Just get them vegan instead, and stop paying these people to do horrible things to animals. That's what I would say.
We have a closing tradition where the guest leaves a challenge for the next guest and for the audience. A challenge to improve that person's positive impact on themselves, on those around them, or on the world. So I'm wondering, what is your challenge for the next guest?
My challenge for the next guest is actually to go and watch that video that I recommended, which the link, I believe it's 3minutes.wtf, is to go and watch that video, sit with it, and take action, whatever it is. That doesn't necessarily, I mean, my action that I would recommend would be to go vegan, of course, because I am a vegan, and you know, I would want you to make that decision for the sake of animals. But I also acknowledge that that might not be the first decision you make. But do something, do anything after you've seen that video. That would be it. So 2 actions, I suppose. Watch the video, do something.
They're very concrete, so 2 actions are allowed. Yeah, very concrete and specific. That's brilliant. Cool. The challenge that was left for you by the last guest was to do something that takes you out of your comfort zone.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah. But right now?
No. No. You have some time.
All right. Yeah. Cool.
Yeah.
I appreciate that. Nice. Yeah. Will do. Yeah. I'll do that.